Alright, welcome back to Dragon Age Origins full playthrough. We are with Elia once again, and we just finished recruiting Sten and Aleliana from the town of Lothering here. And we are going to do a few quests out in the farmlands over here. And then we'll be heading back into town, and then coming back out here to do a few more quests. We'll see how long that takes. I don't think there'll be much more time for much else, but we'll see. There's a group of people over here waiting for us.
We done heard what was said. You're a warden. I don't know if you killed King Cailan, and make her forgive me, I don't care. But that bounty on your head could feed a lot of hungry bellies. Attack!
So they're not giving you the opportunity to negotiate with them at all. They're just basically condemning you, telling you that you're vile, foul, and not worth their attention. So we're gonna run away, gather them all up into one little area, and then...
Of course.
Oh dear, I don't know what I had going on here. Oh, beautiful.
Well.
Okay. So they are all dead. Very, very dead. And my aura is eating a lot of their corpses.
Of course.
Now
Very well.
Quick reminder, since we are not a rogue, we can use Leliana, since she's a rogue, to open chests. Now you won't be able to open all chests. In most of the major areas, like Orzammar, Adenarum, the Circle of Magi, and the Brisilian Forest, each of those areas have at least one chest that you need maximum lockpicking to be able to open. So regardless of where you go, you'll encounter a chest potentially, at least early in the game, that you won't be able to unlock, even if you're a rogue character. Unless you run around and level up your hero a bit before going to each of those areas. Or at least doing the major quest lines in each of those major areas. You can still go to each of those areas and just like introduce yourself to the area, get familiarized with the scenario.
Get back, Sandal! Don't let him touch you!
Oh. Okay, so
Beware.
we're saving these two lovely gentlemen. I really want to give Leliana a bow.
We have done well.
Mighty timely arrival there, my friend. I'm much obliged.
So these two, we actually get to see in all of the Dragon Age games. Well, that's not entirely true, I suppose, but there's a lot of fascinating stuff that happen with them. In this game and in Dragon Age 2, they are regular characters. You get to interact with them regularly. They never join your party, per se, but they are always around, and you will have plenty of opportunity to talk with them, learn more about them, and we'll do that. So these two are actually the merchants I was referring to earlier in this playthrough. I was mentioning that there will be some merchants in our campsite, but they wouldn't appear there until after Lothering. Well, this is why. Because these are the merchants that are going to go there, and the reason they go to our campsite is because we saved them here on this crossroad here, on the way out of Lothering. So because we saved them, they take an interest in our group, and they end up finding us along the way, and they choose to tag along, in a sense, and camp out with our main group. They won't come on you with the adventures, but they will stay with your camp party and have some good equipment and other items that you can purchase. So, how obliged exactly?
You want a reward, eh? I suppose that's an entirely reasonable request. How does 100 silver sound? I was going to use that to fix up the cart, but quite frankly, I'll be grateful enough that my son and I come out of this with our heads.
And yet you have a whole cart full of goods.
Unsold goods, I'll point out, though you've a fair point. Here's 200 silver, but it's all I have. The name's Bodon Fedek, merchant and entrepreneur. This here is my son, Sandal. Say hello, my boy.
Hello.
Road's been mighty dangerous these days. Mind if I ask what brings you out here? Perhaps we're going the same way.
It's a bit complicated, but you're welcome to come along.
Complicated? Somehow I imagine that only says half of it. Thank you for the offer, but there may be more excitement on your path than is good for my boy and me. Allow me to bid you farewell and good fortune.
Goodbye.
Now then, let's get this mess cleaned up, shall we?
So yeah, I'm looking forward to talking with them more. We'll do that once we go to the
It will be done.
campground with all of our allies. So just gonna finish looting, and then we're gonna go.
Very well.
We're not gonna go this way
Yes.
yet, because there's a lot more to do in Lothering still. So we're gonna finish up everything that we can do in Lothering before we move on. First off, we have to finish clearing out this farmlands area.
As you say.
I go.
Jeebus. Look at that. You're doing major damage on my character.
It will be done.
As you wish.
Oh, you a funny one. You are. Very well.
Oh, someone died.
Let us end this.
Enough.
Oh, you know what? That's why. Liliana and Sten still don't have any gear.
Now we get our hands dirty.
Well, that sucks. Quite a lot. Oh well. Oh, here we go. So this is our introduction to specializations. You get your first specialization at level 7 and another one at level 14, just like it says in this paragraph here. These are the 4 options that you have for specializations. Now, when you play the game normally, like without any perks or anything unlocked yet, you actually have to unlock all of the specializations. So none of these will be options for you at the beginning of the game. Absolutely none of them. You have to unlock every single one of them by talking with different characters that you meet throughout the game. Now, in order to get Shapeshifter, you have to talk with Morrigan. She's a part of our party already. And for Spirit Healer, we've already met the character that we need to talk to, but we didn't add her to our group yet. It was Wynn. When we encountered Wynn in the Ostagar ruins, when we were over there, she is a Spirit Healer, and you need to talk to Wynn in order to unlock Spirit Healing. Now, these other 2 I can't talk about without spoiling something, so when we get to the point where you'd be able to unlock those, then I'll point it out and show you exactly what goes on with that. For now, since I do have everything unlocked, I'm actually going to go with Blood Mage to start with. And for that reason, we're going to grab some Constitution. Because once you start using blood magic, it demands that you use health instead of magic to cast all of your spells. So if you do end up getting blood magic, what you will want is to have as many auras as possible, as many sustained auras. So when you look at a sustained aura, it gives you an upkeep value. The upkeep value is how much mana that it costs to maintain that spell. So if you're not going to be using mana to actually fight with, Death Siphon is absolutely useless. So you'll want to not use that anymore. We were using it because we were using mana at first. Telekinetic weapons and all of the other weapon abilities like frost weapons and flaming weapons, they are not stackable unless you have 2 or more mages in your group. So as a mage, you cannot cast all 3 of those at once. It's one of the 3. You cannot have all of them. Other sustained auras that are good to have are things like Spell Wisp. It increases your damage output. Then this one, Haste, increases the speed of all your characters during combat. Spell Might is another good one. However, that one with blood magic, it's not such a great thing to have. Just because it focuses a lot on how much mana you have, and the more mana you have, the more damage you do, essentially. It uses mana to create damage. Spell Shield is a decent one that goes with blood magic. This one, Death Magic, is really, really good for blood magic because whenever you walk over corpses, you siphon a little bit of life from the corpse. So it's the same as the one that we already have, Death Siphon, except instead of getting mana per corpse, you get life per corpse, which is incredibly valuable, especially as a blood mage, and if you're going to be using a lot of your own HP as your casting power. This one's not bad to have. Arcane Shield, neither is Rock Armor. Both of them increase your defense abilities as a mage. But for now, we're actually just going with Animate Dead. We're not going to be using the blood magic right away. But I just wanted to get it so that it's an option for us moving forward. Now, the spell that I just got, when we are in combat, I'll be able to cast that spell, and when I cast the spell near a corpse, I take control of the corpse. We'll test it in the next fight that we go to. But first, since I neglected to do this earlier, let's go ahead and equip Leliana with a bow, so that she's not doing absolutely nothing during combat, and put some better armor on her, so that she's not dying. There we go. Perfect. Oh, actually, those are better than what she had. There. Okay, so Leliana's geared and ready to battle. For the most part, we're going to give her Bat Ring, because it's good for a rogue. That one's good for a rogue as well. Yeah, that's all we need. Now, we can find arrows later in the game. In the original version of the game, you actually don't start with being able to use a bow regardless of whether you have arrows or not. You have to find arrows. So that can be a bit annoying, and it's not exactly a good incentive to play as an archer in this game. That's in the original version. Now, in the version that I have, you can just play through the game and not worry about that. You still do your base bow damage, regardless of whether you have arrows or not. All the arrows do is add additional damage. Now, we haven't found many arrows yet, but this is an example of what arrows look like. Adds +2 to fire damage. So you don't have to use them, and what I do is I stack up all the arrows that I can find and save them for boss fights, or where I think boss fights are going to be, or hard, difficult encounters are going to be. So if I'm going into an area that might be a difficult encounter, I go into the weapons area of my inventory and equip the arrows. for her to fight with. Now, the important thing to remember with the arrows, the reason that it has like a times 20 number there is because you only have 20 shots with it. So every single ability that she casts that uses her bow, she'll be wasting one of those arrows if she has that equipped. Which, you can see how, like, if you're completely reliant on the arrows, that would be a problem. She is injured at the moment, so we're going to give her a lesser injury kit. And then go over to Sten, and I'm sure there's some gear that he can use. We'll give him that for now. Then a couple of daggers. We're going to give him a two-handed weapon as soon as we find one that he can use, because that'll be a lot better than all this garbage. And then we can go to tactics and make sure that if he is low on health, he's going to use a health potion. We'll do the same thing with Leliana, just to make sure that they do not die the second we get into combat. Yeah, see, she didn't have an option to heal herself in there. The default versions never do. They are 100% reliant on having a mage healer in your group. And at the early onset of the game, unless you specialize your own mage to be a healer, you're not going to have a healer. So it's good motivation to come into your tactics area and make sure that all of the characters in your party are going to be using a health potion when they get to a certain amount of life left. Save. And then Morgan, we already did that with, so there we go. Now, as you can see here, because I have two mages in the group, Morgan has frost weapons and I have telekinetic weapons. So those are stackable, and now all of the characters in my group have both of those enchants on their weapons. Now, it mostly only affects melee weapons, so Sten will be getting the most benefit from this at the moment. This tree over here, you can see it's a landmark tree. If you go and click on it, nothing happens. But if you have the dog in your party, your puppy, with you, go and click that tree and you'll have a special interaction with the dog in the tree. Now, oftentimes all that means is that the dog will take a leak on the tree. But that's not always necessarily the case, so. That's one downside about the bomb spell. Makes everything explode and I can't see what's going on.
It's embarrassing. I never liked this part.
There we go. And then that's a longsword. That might be better for Sten. Oh, this is way better for Sten. So we got some gear for Sten from that leader of those bandits. He had a two-handed weapon, and I think that actually remains the same all the time, every time you play through this area. Every time you loot the leader of that group, he will always have a two-handed weapon.
I shall.
That you can give to Sten, which is super convenient if you ended up adding Sten to your party. I don't... Like, the only reason I can see for not adding one of the characters to your party is if it is too contradictory to how your character would act in a role-play setting. So if you're role-playing heavy on your character, that might be incentive to just leave Sten or one of the other characters wherever you meet them, instead of having them follow you as a part of your party. So yeah, he has some fancy new armor now, and it was enough to get an item set bonus. So whenever a character gets an item set bonus, it boosts their stats a little bit beyond what the armor gives normally. Now, oftentimes with a warrior, that means reducing the fatigue level. So as you can see, he only has 8.8 fatigue, even though just on this one piece of armor alone, there's 15% fatigue. So you can tell that it's greatly reducing the amount of fatigue that Sten is experiencing due to his armor. That's part of the set bonus in this case. And for warriors, that in this game at least, that happens to be part of the set bonus on like all of the warrior sets. So another thing to keep in mind. And then we're going to give him an amulet, so that'll help with him as well. Yay! Everybody is slightly stronger. Now there should be some spiders over here. We need to get some herbs from the spiders, or rather, more specifically, the venom extracts, so we can make more poisons, because we had that one quest in the inn to get enough supplies that we can make poison for that devious character.
Try to be merciful. You seek power. I never liked this card.
So the reason Morrigan's not really doing anything, or seems like she's not doing anything, is because I have her character set to be on cautious. However, it does seem like she's not. Oh, right. Okay, so she doesn't have any healing spells yet. That's why she's not doing anything. That's entirely my fault. When you have a character set on cautious during combat, they will essentially refrain from fighting regardless of what's going on in the battle, unless you directly tell them to attack using your tactics screen.
Very well. There's no hope for you now. Now you die. I will not falter. Make a preserve us. Of course. It will be done. You will learn to fear me.
And that is all of the quest area.
Of course.
For now, there should be a chest over in this area, so we're going to use Lelian to go and open it before we go back into town. Right here.
Right away. Yes.
Now we should have plenty of herbs and plenty of all of our other materials to make everything that we needed. Let's go to Leliana. Craft a few poisons. Crafted all 6. There we go. We'll talk with this lady first. She's the one that wanted the medicine.
Have any luck finding herbs in the woods?
Yes, I did.
This will help many people. You're a good sort, you know.
So if you noticed, there was no icon to remind you that there was a quest there. You just have to remember or look at your quest log. So that doesn't always happen. Like usually if it's an important quest, there will be a quest marker to remind you to talk to them.
Did you see the new recruiter?
And we're back in the inn. This guy doesn't have a marker either, but we can talk to him about the poison.
I heard what you did with the other merchant. Got what he deserved. Any luck with that poison? Or you here to see my stock?
So that first comment, he was saying that based on the fact that we killed that one merchant that was arguing with the Chantry. And he greatly approves. But he's not a party member, so it doesn't matter if he approves or not. Other than just for that interaction, I suppose. So I have what you asked for.
Splendid! If those beasties come on my land, I hope it teaches them a lesson. Yeah, there's enough gold to cover any of your expenses and then some, eh?
So, that guy is quite happy with how that interaction went down. While we're here, I think it might be a good idea just to sell a few items. Just want to make sure. I don't want to give away any of these first. Yeah. Okay.
Because I still don't have food to sell.
Do a quick sell. Sell lesser potions, since we don't need those for that quest anymore. Sell all the poison. I don't tend to use the poison much. The poison is really useful if you're playing on a higher difficulty, because it does increase the amount of damage that your characters do in combat. You just have to... Any character that is using a melee or ranged weapon, not including staves, or staves, however you want to say it. So if your character's using daggers, swords, axes, maces, any of that sort of stuff, the poison will increase their damage output in combat by a fairly decent margin. So it's worth having poisons and such for that.
So can you surrender to a Darkspawn? Do they take prisoners?
I hear they eat you.
I heard they just got slaves. Take you underground and make you work.
You ever hear of any ex-slaves?
So, you can kind of, based on the lore that we know...
Excuse me?
Hold on.
Obviously you are no priestess, but shouldn't you be running a shop or a farm somewhere rather than fighting?
You think to tell me my place, Kunari? You are very brave.
It is not done.
But it is done. Do not be such a blind fool.
I speak the truth. It is not I who is blind.
Look around you then. You see women throughout this land, fighters and mages both.
That has yet to be proven.
Which, that they fight, or that they are female?
Either.
So I am not truly a woman to you, 'Tis good to know.
And there you go. So that's a good insight onto Kunari character and such. Anyway, what those two gents by the inn were talking about, the gossip, they mentioned how people are potentially taken as slaves by the Darkspawn. You can tell where that rumor comes from based on what we understand of the Darkspawn later in the game. I won't talk about it too much for now because I think it's a bit of a spoiler, but just something to look out for as we're playing the game. Now, talk to this
Blessed
guy.
are the peacekeepers, champions of the just.
So we just turned in the quest that we did for the Chantry, and this icon here is just reminding us to check the board again. And it introduces the fact that although these were not here before, now that we have completed a quest, it changed. So it introduces you to the idea that the boards and the things that these additional quest areas have, they change frequently throughout the game. So in order to make sure that you have all of the quests that they're offering, you have to keep coming back and checking the board over and over and over. So we did that specifically to turn in the one quest, and now we have some new quests. They are also in this farm area. We have to kill some bears and find a body. It won't be very difficult, and it won't take very long. The body should be up on this hill with the wolves, and then the bears are in the same area where the spiders were. Okay, and then everybody's gonna attack that. And I'll put another bomb on that one. There we go. Oh, I didn't wait long enough. I should have waited to put the bombs on until all the wolves were here. Oh well.
It is done.
Yeah, if you have a big AoE spells, waiting until there's a larger group to use it is more effective. You'll get more out of using the spell than if there's less characters. That's something I should actually talk about though. So the AoE spells are more harmful than they are useful later in the game. And the reason for that is because any AoE spells that you have, you can actually hit your party members if you have that setting turned on higher difficulties. So, well, technically, even on easy, you can do that. It's in your options. So if I go to the main menu and go through the options, there's an option to turn on or off party damage. And it basically means that all of the AoE spells that any of your characters can cast, whether it's a warrior or a mage or a rogue, you can end up hitting and damaging your fellow party members. And it adds like another layer to the game that makes combat significantly more challenging. There we go. So this is the woman who was supposed to be the mother of that boy that we were talking to, who was on the bridge in Lothering when we first entered the town.
It will be done.
Alright, attack of the bears.
As you wish.
Everybody attack the second bear.
As you say.
Let's do that. Yeah. That did not. Okay.
Another foe slain.
Yeah, there we go. And it said quest updated on the side, so we should be able to go back to town, turn in the 2 quests. And call it good. Unless there's more bears over here. Yeah, no, there's no more bears. That was all of them. There are quests later in the game that you can pick up that take you back to Lothering, but they only take you back to Lothering if you haven't done any of the plot quests yet in any of the major areas. So just keep that in mind.
The path of righteousness is full of hardship, but the Maker smiles upon its travelers. And the stars stood still, the winds did quiet, and all animals of earth and air held their breath. All was silent in prayer and thanks.
Yeah, of course they were. So, like I said, it has something to say, or the chanters in general have something to say when you turn in a quest.
For
talk
a
to him
foundation
again,
built of stone,
just in case there was
marble,
another
or
quest we
any
could turn
precious
in.
metal is worthless.
In some cases, you have to click separate times for each quest you turn in. In other cases, it just does like a mass dump on the character, and you can check off all your quests with one click, or one interaction rather. Keep saying click because I'm used to playing the PC version of this game, or at least now I am. The first time I actually played this game, it was on a PS3. Yeah. So, and we're gonna leave the town now. There should be a little bit of an interaction, and we'll see some new areas on the main map unlock. And then we'll go to the character camp, and I'll show you a bit in there before we end the video. Load, load, load. Always takes too long. Any load is too long. So all the flashing is to give you the distinct impression that that's not actually reality, it's part of a dream. Now, it is technically part of reality, but it's also not. It's like a vision.
Bad dreams, huh?
Alistair will explain it here. Why are you bothering me? I'm fine.
It's just that you were shouting in your sleep, loud, and not in a good, this is private way either. You see, part of being a Grey Warden is being able to hear the Darkspawn. That's what your dream was, hearing them. The Archdemon, it talks to the Horde, and we feel it just as they do. That's why we know this is really a blight.
See, and that would have been useful information to get at the beginning of the game, because Duncan was very vague about his implications that this was a blight. He refused to acknowledge the fact that Grey Wardens could talk to the Darkspawn, or that they had part of the blight in them. It's like the Grey Wardens in particular are just like super secretive about all of their ways. And about what makes them work and how they work and all that. Now, there are reasons for that, but whether they're good reasons or bad reasons is entirely up for debate. We already know that the Archdemon was the dragon, because we've seen it before. After the joining ritual, we saw it. And Loghain, specifically during the meeting with the king before the Battle of Ostgar, he was mentioning that the Archdemon is a dragon. So, but outside of that, this gives you another opportunity to ask that question if you didn't ask it earlier in the game. Why didn't Duncan just tell everyone?
He did. He said he felt the Archdemon's presence. Everyone just assumed he was guessing. It takes a bit, but eventually you can block the dreams out. Some of the older Grey Wardens say they can understand the Archdemon a bit, but I sure can't. Anyhow, when I heard you thrashing around, I thought I should tell you. It was scary at first for me too.
Any other surprises I should know about?
Other than dying young and the whole defeat the Blight alone thing, no. I'm all tapped out for surprises. Anyhow, you're up now, right? Let's pull up camp and get a move on.
So, you actually find out that there's a lot of stuff that Alistair doesn't know about the Grey Wardens, because there is, in fact, more information that we could know about now, but he just doesn't know about it because he's a younger Grey Warden. So no one's had the opportunity to talk to him about it yet. So although he knows more than we did at the start, he doesn't know everything there is to know about Grey Wardens. In fact, most Grey Wardens don't even know everything there is to know about Grey Wardens, as is heavily implied in Dragon Age 2. But we'll get there when we get there. So this is the campsite. So on the map, on the major map, it's that button that is available in the top right of the corner. It has like a little tent in a big box. That tent is your campground. And if you click on the tent, this is where it brings you. So as you can see, has all of our party members here. And not only that, but there's some quest options over here. So there's people we can talk to. Levi Dryden, he is part of the DLC. So he will not be there unless you have DLC. Sandal and Bodan, those are the people that we rescued in Lothering. And I was mentioning how they're going to follow us around. Well, this is an example of them following us around. Now we have to go over there and talk to them to see why they're following us. And we'll do that right away. We'll do Bodan and Sandal first.
Ah, it's good to see you, my timely rescuer. Bodon Fedek at your service once again. I saw your camp and remember the kind offer that you made the last time we met. And is there anywhere safer for a poor merchant and his son to sleep? I think not. I'm perfectly willing to offer you a fine discount for the inconvenience of our presence. How does that sound? Good? Yes?
It's awfully presumptuous that he thinks the safest place would be with us, considering we get into a lot of fights. But you can kind of see where he's coming from, considering this is supposed to be our main hub. It's like a base camp, so there are a lot of good fighters here. So during a time of a blight, when you're under constant threat, and especially if you're not a fighter yourself, you can kind of see the perspective that he might feel safer in an environment where he's surrounded by trained warriors who know how to fend off things like Darkspawn. However, it doesn't give an impression of that, especially when you are first introduced to the campsite, because we don't have any followers here other than the people who have just signed on to join our ragtag group. Later in the game, there are representatives from each of the army factions that we can potentially get to join us in our cause against the Blight. However, it still doesn't show or any kind of representation of those armies with us. All it shows are the representatives of each of those factions. So it's difficult to justify that he would feel safe here, other than just based on sheer numbers. It would be mostly based on the fact that these are all hardened adventurers, I suppose. So let's ask him a few things. Yeah, have you been following us?
Following you? I'm not even certain where you're going, my friend. And quite frankly, it's none of my business. Trust me when I say that my encountering you here was serendipity and nothing more. I travel a lot, so I'm bound to meet everyone on the road eventually. If you prefer, I'll take my boy and be on my way. But regretfully, you're the safest spot on this road, without a doubt.
And what are you selling exactly?
Anything, everything, but all of the finest quality. No cheap trinkets here. And my boy Sandal happens to be a bit of a hand with enchantments. Oh, yes. Sadly, it also makes us a target for bandits and the like. If there were spare hands to hire as guards, I would have done so long ago.
So that also gives a little bit of insight as to why he thinks staying with us is a good idea. We kind of offer him some mutual protection. So he provides us with the service of his wagon and carts. He sells us equipment and can store equipment for us or buy equipment off of us, that sort of thing. Plus, his boy here can enchant our weapons and armor. just our weapons at the moment, but in the DLC stuff, you'll have the option to enchant armor as well. And then what he gets out of it is us as bodyguards. So the fact that he's with a large group of warriors or people who've seen to combat, it makes it high or much less likely that he's to encounter bandits. And on top of that, it protects him from the Blight. So you're free to stay with us. Just mind yourselves.
Wonderful. Thank the kind lady, won't you, boy?
Thank you, kind lady.
We won't be a bother to you and your companions, I assure you. If you should need enchantments, simply talk to my boy. Otherwise, come speak with me.
Alright, so we're going to talk with Sandal now.
Hello.
The boy's a bit simple, but he's rather good with enchantments. One of those tranquil fellas actually called him what was it now? A savant. I had no idea such a thing existed.
Alright. What enchantments does he do?
He can fold lyrium into almost any weapon or piece of armor, though naturally some of the more extravagant materials will take more lyrium than others. It's a process that some of the master smiths back in Orzammar will perform, but my boy here is just as adept at it. Isn't that right, boy?
Enchantment!
And there you have it.
Okay, so that's what he has to say. We do have runes, but I'm not going to enchant any weapons yet because I don't feel that it's worth it, at least at the moment. I'd like to see what other goods you have.
Oh, certainly, I can do that for you. Just come with me.
Alright, so these are everything that he has to offer. Right off the bat, you can see that he has some pretty valuable gear. So like, a lot of the things that he sells are high-level gear that will be incredibly useful much later in the game. Now, we only have 25 gold, so I can get one of these. The arcane one would be better for us, but we can still buy both, because even if you can't use one of these books on your main character, you can use it with one of the other characters in your party. Just choose wisely when you do that, because the books only have one use, right? So we'll sell a couple things. Oh, I guess we do have a weapon that we could probably enchant. So this Blood Dragon plate, the rest of the set are available for purchase from Bodan here. So if you buy the full set and equip it on a warrior, you get the set bonus plus a fairly solid plate set. I don't think it's the best in the game, but it's up there. However, it's not entirely necessary either, if you know where to find all the other set pieces that are higher levels. So keep that in mind. And then there's some good rogue boots here you can purchase, rogue gloves as well, and some mage stuff. Not all of it is like the best stuff possible, but at least not yet. Now you can buy runes. These Grandmaster runes, for now, are the best runes that you can get. Once you go into the DLC stuff, like the external DLC stuff, not the stuff that you can do during the main gameplay, that external DLC stuff upgrades the rune system so that you'll be able to use higher level runes than Grandmaster. And then if you keep scrolling at the bottom here, there's a bunch of gifts. Some of these gifts, like the loot, Merrick's shield, Alistair doll, these things all give plus, I think, 50 of admiration, or disapproval. So 50 disapproval. Like ugly boots, protective cone, that's disapproval. Now, I actually am a little bit curious to see what the disapproval does with the dog. Because the dog, you might have noticed earlier, but the dog always starts with 100% approval on you. And that will not lower. Like at any point, there's nothing you can do with the dog around that the dog will disapprove of. However, these gifts allow you to give him disapproval. So that's interesting. I'd be a little bit interested to see what that does, if it does anything, or changes the interactions much. Then if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you have the backpack, which is really good. It adds space to our backpack yet again. And then these are the food items that I was talking about when we first started the game that you would be able to buy. It's like that Feast DLC or whatever it was called. They essentially give you 5 approval per gift, regardless of who you give it to. Now, that is not necessarily the case for all of them. Like these 2 bottom ones, the charcoal and the rotten onion, instead of approval, those give disapproval. So you'll lose approval if you give those to one of the party members, and you'll gain approval if you give one of these two. Now, it has a maximum limit for purchases on both. So what I can do is give the max disapproval to like everyone in my group, and then gift them up again with the opposites, get them back up. Is there anyone I want to actually buy a gift for at the moment? I'm gonna go with no. In fact, we'll probably... No, I'll keep the Blood Dragon armor, or Blood Dragon plate for now, just because I think we'll be able to use it later. I will point out one thing though, like with all of these items, not the food items, so disregard the food stuff, just all of these other items. Each of these items, when you use them to give approval or disapproval to a character, it becomes a non-gift item after you use it, and the non-gift item is like an interactive item that you can only use if the party member who you gave it to in the first place is in your group. It does waste party inventory, however, if you have lots of inventory space, it's worth keeping around, and when you use it, it gives them like a special small interaction that they can have with that item, as opposed to like talking with each other or talking with you. Some of them are rather funny, like this one, the Alistair doll. The Alistair doll is for Morrigan. Actually, because it's so funny, I'll probably buy that later in the game, just to show you what it does. But for now, gonna leave it at that. Maybe sell some of these Lyrian potions. Oh, I guess I could.
Friends are formidable folk, indeed. It's good to have you along on the road.
I'm gonna talk with him again, but I wanted to.
I'm sure you'll be
buy
pleased
that book.
with the goods my boy and I have collected, and with your discount.
So I forgot to buy the arcane book. This one. Oh, I got the backpack, so I can't afford it anymore. Well, that's unfortunate. I'll just get it later. It'll add a skill point to our mage. Now, later in the game, the money won't be an issue. Like, once you've gone through a couple of the main plot points for the game, you'll have, like, so much money, you'll be like, how do I even use all of this? The answer will be given to you in time. So money is a lot like the herbs and the runes that I was talking about earlier, that you want to save that kind of stuff, because there are uses for it. And the uses are here in the party camp, but we don't have the option to use them at the moment. Oh right, I had some more to talk to Bodan about.
Something you need? I'm sure either my boy or I can help you out.
So this option here, rumors, he just gives you fun, nifty information. It can potentially repeat eventually, but for like the first number of times that you do it, it'll always be something unique and new, and you can just keep doing it over and over.
There's knights from Redcliffe spread all over Ferelden on some kind of mission, but I hear that they're starting to become rare to find. Maybe they all went back to Redcliffe. More likely they got tired of searching for something that can't be found and abandoned their search. I wonder what Earl Eamon is going to do without any knights. That's what I've heard on the road, anyhow. Take it for what it is.
So that specific rumor we already knew about, because we talked with one of those said knights when we were in Lothlorien. He was in the Chantry and he told us about the Urn of Sacred Ashes. He also said that he was getting tired of searching, but he mentioned that there was a person in Denerim that we could talk to, who supposedly knows a lot about the urn. Now we can keep talking to him about rumors, but like I said, it's a lot of it isn't super relevant, so for the time being, I'm going to avoid that. We're going to get some backstory on Bodan. Persuade, this is only an option if you have the persuade skill, so what's your story exactly?
Well, if you're really interested, I suppose it wouldn't hurt to tell you. I am originally from Orzammar, the famed dwarven city that lies beneath the stately Frostback Mountains. I was a merchant there too, merchant caste. These things are in the blood, you know. You can't just leave them behind. I ran a fairly successful business. Rare artifacts, you know. Old things, grand things. The nobles loved them. Reminded them of the lost glory days, I suppose.
Lost glory?
Our kingdoms once spanned the length of Thados, from majestic Orzammar to Kal Sharok to glittering Darmalin far to the west. They say the gold and silver veins ran so thick through the stone of Darmalin that the entire city sparkled. The Darkspawn took it all, of course. One by one, the old Tigers fell, and then all that was left was Orzammar. But we were talking about how I ended up here, weren't we? One day, a noble woman came to my stall. She looked around for a bit and then started shrieking in dismay. Apparently, she believed that a pair of braces I had for sale once belonged to her brother. He'd been lost in a cave-in, you see, while on an expedition to clear out the Darkspawn from one of the tunnels running close to the city. They were made specially for him. They're unique, she shrieked. He stole them from my poor brother's corpse. She had me arrested on the spot, of course. Nobles, they're touchy like that.
What happened then?
Well, I didn't steal them. You see, I'd been paying these castless thugs to venture out into the deep roads for me. The lost Tigers, they're full of things that people left behind. Sometimes you can find a treasure, something worth a little gold.
So what he just said there, paying castless to do the bidding, your bidding, that is a common thing that happens with the dwarves. Specifically between the merchants and the castless. The castless are used as like cheap labor, essentially, because they're not allowed to work. They're not allowed to do anything of use in Orzammar. So the merchants take advantage of them as cheap labor, essentially. And Bodan is partaking in that, but Bodan is a good guy overall. It's just, yeah, something to think about there. Well, better do something with them than leave them to rot.
That's exactly how I see it. The noblewoman, she wasn't too happy with the theft of her brother's braces. I don't know what they planned for me, and I didn't want to find out. Bribed the guard that was watching me and took off for the surface first opportunity I got. Never looked back.
Well, fascinating story, thank you.
You're quite welcome. Now, is there anything the boy or I can get you?
Now, as you can see, it opened up some new dialogue options. So, we're going to ask, where do these goods come from? Not the deep roads.
Look, we don't rob people, all right? We don't take things from people that need them. The things in the Lost Tigers, what good did they do lying there? I brought them back to Orzammar, where people could look at them and remember. It's not all that different up here. There are places long abandoned by the humans everywhere. Even more now with the Darkspawn coming.
What do you mean?
People flee from the Blight with good reason, but they forget things. Things with value and meaning. They leave them behind because they're frightened and desperate. And sometimes, my boy and I, we find our way to these places before the Horde descends, and we save these things. I take them away so the Darkspawn don't get them. Is that so bad? They destroy everything they touch.
The Blight will not last forever.
No, of course not. And when it ends, I will go back to finding ruins, or move on. I don't really have much of a choice.
You didn't mention your son in your tale.
Ah, yes. I'm married to a fine woman back in Denerim, it's true. She'd give me a son if she could, but that's not likely to ever be. Sandal here, I found him in the deep roads years ago. Abandoned, I think, and he was never quite right in the head. I took him in, and I brought him with me when I came here to the surface. He may not be my blood, true, but I think of him as one.
We left Orzammar.
That's right, boy. Maybe one day we'll see it again.
Blood isn't all that important.
That's how I've always felt. As long as he's happy, so am I. It's not as if I don't benefit, mind you. Turns out the boy's a natural working with enchantments. He might have even been lyrium-addled. I never thought of that before, to be honest. Happens sometimes. He can work an enchantment into just about anything, however, given some time. Could probably open his own shop, if he knew how.
Enchantment.
Well, he does seem to enjoy it, at least.
So there's a lot of interesting things surrounding Sandal. That's why we went through and did all this, because I wanted you to get a little bit of information about Sandal. We're going to be getting a lot more information about him in later games. Dragon Age 2 in particular has a lot of information about Sandal because he's still actually relatively frequently in that game. Inquisition adds a little bit more to it, but most of the information you'll get is in Dragon Age 2. In Inquisition, the information that it gives pertaining to Sandal are more hints and rumors. So there's nothing definitive in Dragon Age Inquisition. There's only the rumor side to things. And I'll of course talk a lot more about that once we get there. I should go.
Of course. Good fortune to you and yours.
Goodbye.
I do want to talk with Levi Dryden here before we end the episode, so I'll give him a talking to, and then we'll end the episode, and I'll continue from here next time.
You're a hard woman to find. Where are my manners? The name is Levi Dryden. Did Duncan ever mention me? Levi of the Coins? Levi the Trader?
No. He didn't. Duncan never mentioned you.
Really? He never told you of old Levi? We've known each other for years. But here I am carrying on while you have a blight to stop. Don't want to waste your time. But you see, Duncan promised that together we'd look into something important for the Wardens. And for me. But poor Duncan's... well, no more. A tragedy it is, at that. But I know he would want his work carried on. His pledge fulfilled.
Yeah. How did you know Duncan?
It's a bit of a tale, that is. But I'm the one who brought the Grey Wardens back to Ferelden. Well, I was one of the ones. There were a lot of us. Maker's breath, I'm a bit nervous. Honoured to be here, really.
So there's a lot of half-truths and subtle lies that he's been sharing with us so far. Not out of any malintent, but it's there nonetheless. What promise did Duncan make you?
My family, well, past a bit checkered to see. Nobles look at us with disdain. My great-great-grandmother, Sophia Dryden, was the last Warden Commander of Ferelden back when the Wardens were known as freeloaders. So King Arland banished the Wardens, and he took House Dryden's land and titles.
Just tell me what happened.
Duncan wanted to reclaim the old Grey Warden base, Soldier's Peak, and perhaps we'll uncover evidence to restore my family's honour along the way. Nobody's been to Soldier's Peak since the Grey Wardens were banished, but I found a way. They say it's haunted, and it's certainly dangerous. Will you help me?
Why didn't Duncan help you?
Darkspawn surfaced in southern Ferelden, and Duncan got plenty busy recruiting new Wardens and meeting with good King Cailan. Duncan said he would help after the Battle of Ostagar. Said there might be useful things at the peak, but he never had the chance.
How will reclaiming the peak help the Wardens?
Soldier's Peak has strategic and symbolic importance. Duncan said that it would be worth it right there. He also hoped to recover lost Warden history and perhaps a few old relics. No one knows what's up there now.
Alright, fair enough. That's the only thing that he said that would have been conceived as a compelling argument for Elia. The fact that it might help the Wardens, and there's lore about the Wardens, so she can potentially learn a lot more about this order that she's joined. Let's go to Soldier's Peak.
1,000 blessings upon you, Warden. I'll mark down the location on your map. When you arrive, we'll pick our way through the tunnels together.
So luckily, when you do that, it doesn't actually force you to go to the peak. It just opens up the option to go to the peak. And you'll see what I mean once we go to the map. But we'll talk about that next time. For now, I'm going to end the video here. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, remember to like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.